Honeymoons are meant to be a time of love. A time to enjoy the woman who just said yes to you. A time to finally look back on and remember. But mine turned out to be the worst experience of my life. My name is Noah Michael, and this is my story. It started on the 17th of July, 2007. Me and my lovely wife, Adriana, had just had the best day of our lives. We were also planning on going to the best honeymoon ever. And after thorough planning, my wife had suggested a place called Hearts Crossed Lovers. It was an island resort that was out of the country, and she said she'd seen it in a magazine a while back, and she thought it'd be the perfect place for us to start the rest of our lives. I remember saying, the review said there's so much love in the atmosphere, you could literally die. I wasn't really into the location. All I knew was that if we were together, I would be happy. So we boarded a plane the next week, and we went to the island resort. We reached the island resort, and the place was beautiful. Everything from the atmosphere to the hotel to the activities. Everything really screamed love. We settled in and began the best week of our lives. We did numerous couple activities as we enjoyed ourselves. I remember telling her, "You always manage to find the best places." She smiled at me and then replied, "I also managed to find the best person I could marry." I remember smiling really hard at what she said. This is going to be the first of many beautiful moments we'll experience together. We had been at the resort for 2 weeks, and me and Adriana knew that we'll be leaving soon, as we had only planned to stay for a month. That evening, there was a program for couples that was organized by the natives of the island. When we got there, we were met with other couples, and when the program started, the natives began to dazzle us with their tribal dances and songs. It was truly a beautiful sight. After an hour, the program was coming to an end, and one of the natives took the stage to give the closing remarks. It was a woman, and she said, "Now it is time to reveal the couple that Ubu has chosen." I was confused, and I began to ask my wife, "What's going on?" And she said, "Didn't you read the brochure? Ubu is apparently the founder of the island, and every 10 years, he picks a couple he has seen that their love is the strongest." I remember still being confused, so I said, "What?" And she said, "It's just a silly tradition done by the natives of the island." As I was about to ask another question, cheers erupted around us, and we looked to the stage to see native island women pointing directly at us, as we had apparently been chosen as the couple of honor. I was still confused, and they began to decorate us with beads and seashells. I called a waiter aside to explain, as my wife wasn't really explaining what was going on well, and he said, "It's a traditional thing done every 10 years by the villagers. Once they choose you, you will be taken by the villagers to see exclusive sites around the village and to participate in some exclusive activities." The next morning, the activity started off with a drama acted out by the natives, and it told a story about the founder of the island, Ubu. It said he found the love of his life on the island, and he decided to share the love he found to the island visitors. The narrator said, "And the love of his life told Ubu, 'My heart is so full of love for you, and if I could give it to you right now, I would, as I know this love will diminish within the coming years. So if you could take it, my heart as it is ripe and full of love now, I will gladly give it to you.'" I was still confused and perplexed at everything that was going on, as I didn't understand the cryptic story. Eventually, it was done, and we were taken around the village to see some sights. We were also given a weird concoction to drink. I was hesitant, but I didn't want to be rude, so I took a little. When we were done, the last place we were taken to was the Diamond Beach. The water was bewitching as it sparkled like glass. After that, the activities were over, and we finally began to make it back to the hotel resort. That night, while my wife slept, I stayed awake. I don't know why, but I felt really uneasy. It was 1 a.m. on the dot when my body fell completely limp. I was aware of my surroundings, but I couldn't move or speak. And that's when I saw them. A square trap door that was situated on the floor was opened in the middle of our room, and numerous black figures emerged from the ground. They immediately carried me and Adriana. We still couldn't move, speak, or scream. As they took us down the trap door, we were taken through elaborate tunnels, and we eventually found ourselves outside. I saw what looked like little stone altars, and we were placed on them, and they began to surround us. The scene looked like they were preparing for a ritual, as eventually everything went quiet, and a woman began to speak. "Listen, and listen well, chosen couple. You will now hear the full true story of our forefather, Ubu, and his lover. As you see, Ubu knew that their love won't last forever, as love is fickle and weak. It fades away with time. His lover knew this too, so the only way they could preserve their love was to harvest and cut out their hearts when it's fresh and full of love, so that their love will last forever. So wise Ubu did the needful, and he carved out his wife's heart, the same on which we have kept for decades. She then proceeded to raise a jar. I couldn't make out what was in it, as I could only see a few remnants of whatever was once in the jar. The woman then continued and said, Ubu then realized that he had to stay to appreciate the love he had been given. So he passed down the teachings to us, and we have been following suit as we passed down the love to numerous lovers. Each of them raised a jar of their own, and this time I could see clearly preserved human hearts in the jar. Some were rotting and some looked fresh. And that was the moment when I screamed. My wife Adriana began to scream too at that sight. I then heard the woman say, "The concoction is wearing off. It's time to begin." And with that, she revealed a huge knife and she began to approach my wife. I began to struggle to move, but I couldn't, as what they had given us to drink was clearly potent. I watched my wife begin to scream as she told her body to run, but it couldn't. And that's when the native woman lifted the knife and decided to scar me for life. I watched her carefully carve out my wife's heart, and it didn't take long before my wife stopped screaming, and I saw her dead eyes stare at me. They then proceeded to take it and raise it in the sky. The native woman then said, "Your love has been preserved, and it will be for many years to come." I then saw them use a little knife to carve a cross into my wife's heart. They then poured oil on it, and they proceeded to put it in a jar. When they were done, they turned to me and said, "Sadly, you aren't as wise or as resolved as Ubu, so you can't appreciate what we have done for you. So, we will send you to be with your lover soon." I didn't scream or fight, as all I wanted to do was die, as I had already died inside when I saw them kill my wife in the most horrific way. They then carried me and my wife's corpse to the Diamond Beach, and they threw us into the water. As the waves carried us farther out, I felt the ice-cold water seep through my skin. And as I saw my wife's corpse float out of my reach, I felt anger fill me as they had taken away the love of my life. I tried to reach out to her body, but I still couldn't move my arms. But I wasn't going to give up. So with all my strength, I reached out to her, and I held her corpse right before it was about to sink. I began to pull her as I fought the current, and with all my strength, I began to make my way to shore with her body in my arms. It was the most brutal and strength-draining experience, but I did it. And when we finally reached the shore, I collapsed. I began to hear some footsteps, and I was scared as I thought it was the native villagers. But it was a receptionist I had met at the resort. He saw me moving and rushed to my side. And the last thing I heard him say before I passed out was, "I'll go get help." I woke up in the resort, but in a different room, and with a bad headache. I was surrounded by 2 doctors and a few cops. I immediately asked for my wife Adriana, but the doctor told me to be calm. I began to cry, and with tears, I told them everything that happened. Later that day, the village was raided, and everything I told them was true, as they found the shrine, the altars, and over 30 preserved human hearts. The investigation took place, and it was revealed that the villagers had killed over 30 couples. I was given Adriana's body to bury, and taking it back home to bury was the worst feeling I ever experienced. 14 years have passed, and nothing has changed. People tell me that I'm lucky to be alive, but there is no day I don't wish that I had died with my wife, as the only reason I fought was to get justice for her, and even then, it wasn't enough. But even though I still stand and breathe, when those people carved out my wife's heart, they carved out mine, as I feel nothing but emptiness in my heart. And I know it's the only feeling I will have for the rest of my life.